Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks all for attending our webinar here. So I'd like to invite you all to sort of so that we can have a quick overview of the Sharperlight, and we'll briefly just discuss the sort of modules within the product so that at least we can understand it better. And as Dan mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to basically put it in the chat, and we should get to answer that at the end of the session. And anyway, so what I'll do is I'll just share my screen on my end so that we can briefly start on that. And I believe you should be seeing my screen now. So if I basically just to start with a brief introduction of sort of what Sharperlight is. It won't be a detailed sort of deep dive into Sharperlight, but it will be more of an overview to sort of give you a brief experience of what modules it entails and what it can sort of give you, especially for all of you who are SAP use SAP as your main product. So a brief overview of what Sharperlight is and what it can do for you. In a summary nutshell, what is basically known as it's known as a self-service business intelligence tool. And what it means by self-service is that, as you can see, most of the business intelligence tools now, if you look at your Power BIs and your whatnot, your ClickViews, all of that, yes, it's good in terms of presenting all that information. But in terms of for a non-technical user to sort of being able to connect to your live data system, to your live SAP system live. And it's not only your SAP system, because once they actually show you the product, you'll actually see that Sharperlight is not only for your SAP product. You can actually connect to different multiple data sources. If you have a data source within an Excel workbook stored somewhere, if you have an Access database, if you have all these different systems where you want to come up with a consolidated sort of reporting, Sharperlight will actually go and be able to retrieve that data real time. Of course, apart from that, you'll be able to get dashboards and whatnot. So it's sort of a full enterprise reporting tool. So if I can just briefly just run through this brochure of what you can expect from there. What Sharperlight is, it's sort of it's a solution-wide sort of a solution, which means it can extract data straight from your live SAP data system into an Excel workbook, or we can even publish and create dashboards and whatnot. And of course, with an extra license, we can even sort of auto-schedule certain reports so that you can get your automated reports if it's daily and weekly and whatnot. So Sharperlight can also go that extra step and give you that sort of automated reporting in that case. So I think without wasting time, I'll just briefly go into the Excel version of Sharperlight, which is the main sort of which most of our clients actually use for. So as you can see, my Excel there, Sharperlight actually comes in with an add-in there. In my case, it's Sharperlight XL. In terms of support, it actually supports from anything from an Excel version 2003 and then above. So I'm running, I think, 2016. So it is supported. So for all those who are on lower versions, yes, Sharperlight will be supported on your end anyway. So in this particular case, in my scenario, I have the Sharperlight added in there, which comes with a range of functionalities, as you can see there. But just quickly, just to sort of pull in data from SAP, and then I can sort of expound more on that. So as you can see initially, so sort of my cursor is on the cell C5. I'm leaving a bit of space on top so that when I want to create filters and parameters and whatnot, you'll actually see what I'm doing. So I'll just start with a basic table. But of course, within Sharperlight, you can sort of create different sort of range of reporting. You can even create report templates, which, so for example, if you have your management sort of reporting, which is required in a certain template each and every month, you can actually design that within Sharperlight. And what Sharperlight will be doing at the end of the month, it'll just be a matter of one click just with the refresh, and you can get it in the exact template and format you want. So you keep on saving time, and sort of rather than extracting into SAP into an Excel and tend to do all the formatting on that. So far what I did is I just clicked on my table, and what actually pops up on my end is the query builder. And this is what this is the user interface which Sharperlight tends to use throughout all the report building. So it actually makes it easier so that we only have one user interface to sort of build all our reports. And I'll actually show you when you actually build a web report or a version of a report to view it on the browser, we'll actually use the same interface. So it actually makes it easier because it's the same interface, but you can sort of design different sort of reporting. So makes it easier even for the users who are less technical. They can easily sort of navigate and play with the reporting. So once this query builder pops up, as you can see there, the first bit, as you can see there, is sort of it will ask the end user sort of what sort of report would you actually like to build. So in my case, by the default, it says a summary there. But if I actually double click on that, I have a number of options there. I can do a detailed report, and based on the information there, it will sort of mention where it will give me sort of detailed transaction report. So if I want more on a detail level, of course, I'll go with the detailed report. And of course, there's a number of options which comes automatically, like reference and lookup, especially once we create filters. But I think for now, I'll just stick with the summary there. But I think just for all of those who are listening to this call, is that Sharperlight can design however you want it. If you want to go down the summary level, or as detailed as possible, or some even prefer to start with the summary level, and within Sharperlight, you can actually create drill downs, because that's supported there, and I'll actually show you once we get to that. So in this case, I'll just click on summary report. I'll click on OK. And the next bit is basically asking me, so what sort of product would I like to extract data from? And as I mentioned earlier, the Sharperlight is multi-data source, so I can not only connect to my SAP Business One system. And by the way, in this case, it says SAP Business One, but it actually applies to both SQL and HANA. So based on the connection in the initial setup, which it's more technical, I didn't show you, but you can sort of, at the beginning, you set up whether you are SQL based or even HANA based. So it allows all the different one anyway, but the interface is exactly the same. So I have the option of choosing SAP Business One, but there's also a standard system which comes with Sharperlight, so which allows me to sort of connect to, for example, I can connect to Excel workbooks or CSV files, or I can even go to the internet sort of and pick some financial data, for example, exchange rates from a certain URL on the internet, and actually pull it within Sharperlight. So I can do all that, but I think the main thing for our demonstrations today, I'll actually stick with SAP Business One there. So I'll click on SAP Business One. So far, I've just created the mode. I've chosen the data source where I'd like to sort of extract the data from, and in my case, it's SAP Business One. So the next bit, if I move forward, it's sort of it's asking me sort of which company would I like to extract data from. As we all know, in our SAP, we might have a single company, or we might even have multi-company. So what Sharperlight does, it actually supports multi-company. So yes, multi-data source and also multi-company, which means I can easily build my consolidated reporting across a number of companies. So for all those who have a number of companies, even if they have different, for example, in one company you have a euro as the main one, and in another one you have a GBP one, you can sort of create even like consolidated report, which we've done for a number of our clients, and we can set up even sort of monthly exchange rates, so that we can have our consolidated reporting. So what that means is I can, for example, choose my UK company, which is my test database, just by double clicking on that. Or what I can do is I can even click on that again, and with control on my keyboard, I can select, for example, I want my UK and my Australian company. And if I click on OK, that should actually select the two companies. And as you can see there, there's an OEC Computers UK, and then there's a comma, and then my Australian company. So it's as simple as that, just to create a query across two companies. Of course, if I was to do this in a technical term, I will have to do unions and whatnot. So Sharperlight actually reduce the technical skills where you actually don't need that. So anyway, in my case, because I know most of my demo data is in the UK, so I'll go with the UK database. And the next bit, which will become more familiar to especially all the SAP users, if I click on this, which is my table name, it will sort of list for me all the tables I can actually go into SAP and extract that data from. As you can see, this actually resembles the SAP menu structure. So for example, if I go to my administration, I can easily pull my exchange rates, and of course there's different tabs there. I can go to my financials easily. I'll have my GL transactions, so I can easily build my P&L and my balance sheets and my cash flow based on this. I have my cost accounting and my budget, so I can easily do my comparison if need be. And as you can see, it actually has each and every module. I have my sales, purchasing, as you can see, banking, inventory, production. And the beauty about Sharperlight is that whenever there's a custom table, for example, you've created a user-defined table, or there's a user-defined field which you use to capture additional information in SAP, Sharperlight will actually load that automatically. So in my case, if I have a user-defined table, for example, from my, if it's from an add-on or if it's just a custom one, I can easily see them at the very end under the user-defined tables. And as you keep on creating new ones, Sharperlight will create them automatically. And the same applies with the user-defined field. So there's no extra sort of information which needs to be plugged in, or like a technical. Once you create a user-defined field in SAP, it will automatically refresh in Sharperlight for you to be able to sort of extract it and be able to do your reporting. So I think in this particular demonstration, I'll just use the sales as a basic there. So I'll click on the sales there. And of course, when I click on the sales, I have a number of optional filters as you can see there. So for example, I can select on my document code. So this is what Sharperlight tends to suggest, but of course I can choose to ignore it. And what I have on the left-hand side is the selection. And what this selection is, it's actually all the necessary available fields within SAP Business One, where you can actually use within Sharperlight to actually report from. So what this means is I don't need to know what's the table, what's the column name, what's the technical background of how that data is stored. Because what Sharperlight has, it has this concept of a data model, which you have sort of like a reporting layer where you as the end users just get the available fields. And as I'll just show you now, it's just a matter of drag and drop to sort of identify what fields you want to sort of for your reporting purposes. So in this case, I have my selection there. And with regards to this, as you can see, you have all the available fields and you have folders within that. So these folders are just actual joins to the main table. For example, I have my customer code, but this actually automatically, that table has already been linked to the business partner master table in SAP. So if I click on that, I can get all the additional information. For example, my addresses, my payment terms, and whatnot anyway. So to extract data from SAP into Sharperlight is just a matter of sort of identifying what details you want. So in my case, for example, let's say I want a quick sales reporting. So I can easily come in here. For example, I can drag who's the customer. I want to know what's the customer code. I can drag my customer name, so I can easily drag this to the output. Or I can even double click the field on the left hand side. For example, if I double click on the customer name, it actually appears in my outputs, as you can see there. So what I'm doing so far is I'm actually just selecting the output so that I can see how the data looks like. And if I hit on preview, just for you to have a look, you can easily see my data is actually trying to basically pick shape, as you can see there. So I can easily go back to my query and I can easily remove this, my customer name from there, and pick the name from the master table. So I'll drag in just some additional information, such as invoice number. I can drag the date, as you can see. So as you can see, it's actually straightforward. I'm just dragging in the data. In a scenario where I want some fields which I don't see, it probably is hidden within folders, I can use the search icon there. For example, let's say I want to look for the item sold and the description. So if I just search for item, Sharperlight will actually bring you the necessary filtered results, as you can see there. So in my case, I can just select item code and drag it there. And I can even go click on that and drag in additional information such as description. Maybe I want the quantity sold. I'll put in the price and maybe the line total and the gross profit. So as you can see within Sharperlight, I can sort of identify what fields I want for my reporting needs, and I can easily just extract that. And I'll just add one more for salesperson. I'll just search for that and I'll drag the salesperson name somewhere there. So I'll just put it there. And with a click of the preview button, I will easily see how my data looks like. So now this is getting to the detailed version of it all. So as you can see, it has basically extracted for me all my sales data. So far, I've not put in any particular filters. So it's all the data, for example, straight from SAP into Sharperlight at the moment there. And if I was to do the same thing in SAP, I will have to identify sort of the technical. I need to know, okay, what's the tables and whatnot. And what Sharperlight does in the back end, just to show you, if I click on the information icon there at the top right, at the top left, click on that and click on my SQL statement, what Sharperlight will give me, it will actually give me the actual query used. So I can even check this query and actually paste this into SAP Business One and use it as part of my query manager and store it there. It will actually work both ways. So I can build it in Sharperlight and take it into SAP Business One. So once I have my reporting, as you can see there, I'll just sort of I can put in my document number at the top so that it sorts based on that. And I'll hit a quick preview just to see how my data looks like again. As you can see now, it sorts based on the number. And I can go back to my query. Let's say I'm happy with this. I'll just click on OK. And what this does, it will basically tell me to give the query a name. But for now, I'll just leave it as the default. So I'll click on OK. So once I click on that, you can see all my data actually pulled in straight from my live SAP data system straight into my Excel workbook, as you can see there. And what Sharperlight tends to do, I'll just expand this. And what Sharperlight tends to do is that it actually has a formula there where I actually started. So in the beginning, I actually started at C5. So there's a formula which actually sits there, which is the MD table, which is responsible for sort of bringing in the live data straight from SAP. So what I can do is I can easily save this workbook. And the next time someone does a sales invoice, immediately if I refresh this worksheet, I will easily be able to see any sort of new postings which come into the system. So it's as easy as that, easily extract data from my SAP system straight into my Excel workbook. Of course, we can take it a step further where in my instance, I've just extracted all that data. But what we can do is we can sort of add in additional filters and prompts within here. So what I'll do is, let's say in a scenario where in my case, it shows, as you can see, it shows all the date ranges. And let's say I just want to add a date range because I have all my data from 2006, as you can see. So it's quite some, so we might need to sort of filter it just to show you how it works. So of course, there's a number of ways I can sort of filter this data set. So for me, I can easily go back to my original query by double clicking on where I started. So I'll double click on the C5. That takes me back to the query builder. And what I can do, in the same way where I dragged my field from the selection into the output, I can drag, for example, my date from the selection into the filter above. So I can just drag it above. And that sort of creates this document date as a filter. And what I can do, I have an option of whether to either hard code this within the query rebuilder. And what I mean by that is, if I double click on this cell now, I will see a date lookup option, and I can select, for example, I want from the beginning of January 2019, click on OK, maybe up to the end of July, the end of this month. And as you can see there, I sort of put in the latest hard coded from the beginning of the year up to the end of the current month. If I click on OK, and I can see, as you can see there, my data is actually quite less because I'm only looking at 2019 data. But of course, what we can tell the Sharperlight is, rather than me each and every time having to go into the query builder and changing the dates, we can sort of put in the dates filters within the Excel workbook, and that's something which Sharperlight does quite well. So what I can do is I can sort of put in some text there, maybe my from date and my to dates. You can see there. Just click on that, and I will just put in my, for example, my date from 01/01, beginning of the year 2018. Maybe to 31st December 2019. So far I just type this in, and if I click on this, nothing happens, as you can see, because it's just text so far. But what I can tell Sharperlight is that I actually want to map my date filter, which is the document date. I'll actually map this to the actual cells which I created in my Excel workbook. So it makes it easier if a user wants to change the filters. So I'll click on my first icon there, and I'll I'll link it to the cell B2 by just double clicking on that, and that changes it to cell B2 as you can see there. And I'll do the same thing for the other bit. So click on that, that's highlighted, and I'll double click on the 2 dates. And as you can easily see there, it's actually kept in as B2 and B3 there. So if I click on OK, and what that does, it actually, as you can see, it actually refreshed my data now. I'm only looking at 2018 data. And if I actually double click on my filter now, I'll actually see a calendar lookup on my system, on my reporting there. So what that means, if I actually click on this, and for example, change, because I know it's my test data, so maybe from 2010, I can from 1st of February, click on that, and I can easily see my data will refresh based on that. So now I have my 2010 data based on that. And of course, I can sort of build in additional filters and whatnot. For example, I want to do the same thing for my salesperson. So I can come in here and do the same thing, maybe create a salesperson, and I'll just use Bill as a temporary there. I'll just put in as Bill Levine there. So far, if I double click on that, nothing happens again. So I'll easily go back to my Sharperlight reporting, and I can easily even take the filter straight from there for my salesperson, and I'll map my filter exactly again to my Excel cell, which is B4. So if I double click on that, that sets it there. So now if I click on OK, my data will refresh based on that. Now if I actually double click on my salesperson now, if I click on that, I will actually see my salesperson listing. So if I, for example, I go to Sophie, click on that, I'll only see, as you can see there, sales related to Sophie. Of course, if I reduce this range, maybe from 2016, so that I have a minimal range, I can, as you can see, my data set reduces. I can go to my sales manager there, and of course it increases. Plus, I can even do a number of ranges. I can, for example, select Brad, and with hitting Control on my keyboard, I can select Brad, Jim, and Sophie. So I can select a number of them. I can choose to exclude who I want and whatnot. So if I click on OK, and now I can see all my salesperson. I have Brad now, I have Sophie, as you can see there. So I can sort of create a range of and sort of build the filters as I go, as you can see there. And then what sort of what you can do, especially from here, is that you can actually, for example, from a detailed sort of reporting, you can even expound on that. And what I mean by that is, I'll easily just copy this again and just jump into a new sheet to sort of show you. You can even start with a summary based reporting and sort of build drill downs on top of that. So I can quickly go back to the main query and sort of copy the base of it. So I can just right click, copy to my clipboard. So rather than me creating it all over again, I'll just copy that. And within my table, I'll just create a new table reporting, and I'll import from my clipboard. So rather than me creating again, I'll easily pick from there. So what I'll be required to do is I'll just do the mapping again. I can easily do that to that, and I'll just remove my, I'll remove my salesperson, sorry about that, and I will map my data to that. And I'll try to make this as a summary based reporting so you can easily see what I get with that. So just the customer and maybe the totals, that's all I need actually. So I'll remove whatever I don't need. And that's the beauty about it, is that once I remove the columns which I don't need, Sharperlight will actually automatically summarize it. So in my case, in the original one, I had a detailed version which had the date and the item sold. In this case, I just removed all the necessary columns and just left it in a summary. So I'll leave it as this. I'll click on OK. And I'll give it a different name. It's fine, sales AR. So I can sort of get the same data as you can see there. With my sales, of course, I can choose to format it because it works as a normal Excel workbook as you can see. So and the beauty about Sharperlight is that rather than having sort of to go into another reporting to get the detailed breakdown within the main report. For example, I want to know, okay, what constitutes this 85,000 from MaxiTech? I can easily I can do a quick drill through just to see, or a quick drill down based on the data. So if I click on my drill down there, based on the cell I want, so I'm on MaxiTech, it's highlighted. I can click on my drill down there, And I can even go a summary on top of that, or I can even go detailed on top of that. So in this case, I'll just go straight to detailed. And what I'll be required to do, I'll just be required to do how would I want to see sort of what's the breakdown based on that. So I'd like to make it a bit more detailed. So I'll just drag in my document number, maybe the customer reference, and maybe the date and what was sold, just so that you can see the breakdown. So now if I click on OK, I can, as you can see there, I can start from a summary version, which is 85,000, but that actually breaks down now based on, as you can see, based on all the invoices done, based on the date, based on the item sold, and as you can see, it gives me a breakdown of each and every individual transaction, which is something you can do within Sharperlight. So you can start with like a summary based and build in this drill through. You can even save them within that. And you can even do some extra analysis on top of that. For example, let's say I want to sort of group it based on either based on the date or based on the items to easily see, okay, with this particular customer, which items were sold more. So just by highlighting my item code and dragging it on the header, it will actually group it automatically. As you can see that actually group for me, I can see all my items A005 grouped under one heading with their totals there. If I expand this, so I can collapse them. I can see, for example, for my item code A003, what was the sales total for that particular one. So I can even choose to analyze it a step further. As you can see there, you can sort of analyze it in a different way, which Sharperlight sort of allows you in that. And what you can also do in terms of sort of automating your reporting in certain scenarios where you need to sort of run a sales report based on different salesperson a number of times, or if it's based on a company or whatnot. Sharperlight also has this concept of a splitter where rather than, for example, rerunning the report a number of times, you can sort of, based on the filters, just with the one click of a button, to sort of execute it for you based on the filters you have. So in my scenario where I have my salesperson there, let's say, let me just add a number of them. I'll add Bill. Just add a number of them. And what I can do is there's a splitter option, so which allows me to sort of automate my reporting within Sharperlight. And once I've done that, I can easily tell Sharperlight, go ahead and find for me what are the filters available in my report. So if I click on extract the filters, what it will basically do is based on the filters I've created. So in my initial query, as you can see there, I had my from date and to date, and I had my salesperson. So I'll easily do based on the salesperson, because that would make much more sense on my end. And I'll just select all the salesperson basically to split based on that. And I can tell the system is just create for me basically a split button there. And what this will do, it will basically make it easier for me. I'll just drag this around, make it easier for me, because if I wanted to sort of run the report based on, for example, different salesperson, in my scenario is just a few, but in a scenario where you have a number of them, just with a click of this button, what Sharperlight will tend to do, it will sort of split it, as you can see at the bottom there, based on the different salesperson, and do it automatically for you. Yes, you can start with the summary for all the salesperson, but if you want to sort of send it to the individual, if it's the sales reps or sales managers, you can easily use the splitter functions. And what that does is, based on the filters, as you can see there, we started with an original one which had all the salesperson, but what Sharperlight did, it actually created a different sheet for every salesperson. So for my Bill Levin there, it only shows me sales related to Bill. I can go to Brad, I can see what's related to Brad. Jim has no sales within that range. As you can see, my no sales employee has a number. Sales manager has quite a few. So you can sort of automate these things within Sharperlight to make it sort of easier in terms of running your reports and whatnot. So it's also one nice feature which I wanted to touch upon that. And of course, I'll just go back to my tree and easily delete my branches there. So of course, I can run this at any given time. And of course, Sharperlight will always bring you the latest live data straight from your SAP system. So you don't need to worry about postings or whatnot. So when someone posts and you hit on the refresh button, Sharperlight will actually show the current true picture. That's in a nutshell, that's basically the Excel templates. Of course, we can do a number of reportings. I'll just briefly show you the templates which are actually available. to share with you guys. So if I look at the Sharperlight reporting pack, which was created by Sharperlight themselves. So what this basically does is sort of has sort of a summary of sort of what sort of to get you started on building your templates within Sharperlight. So similar to what I did in this particular scenario where I can have a company filter, and if I double click on that, I can choose, for example, my US company. And as you can see there, my data, my accounts will refresh based on that. Of course, I can choose based on UK or a number of them. And of course, my data will refresh. So you can, within Sharperlight, you can use Sharperlight and Excel hand to hand. For example, I can easily use my Sharperlight to actually bring for me the top 10 and use the, for example, the pie charts or the charts within Excel. So as you can see there, I can sort of, I have my top 10 customers and suppliers side by side, and the data is actually being pulled straight from Sharperlight. So we can sort of have all these different templates there. And to take it a bit step further, you can even have a concept of report templates. For example, if I go to my profit and loss there, where I can sort of, as you can see there, this actually in the template, you actually sort of, if it's your financial, your month-end templates which you require, and what Sharperlight will tend to do, you can easily tell Sharperlight based on these values where to actually go and pick the ranges from. So in this particular case, I'm telling Sharperlight, okay, for my sales revenue there, I want you to pick the sales value from this range of GL accounts, from account 350,000 to 400, and as you can see there, 440 and 40. So you can sort of, I can make my report as custom as possible and even as flexible as it's required. So that's one thing which Sharperlight basically it tends to do on that. So you can sort of play with the Excel version. It actually works with it, and you can even embed it with charts and whatnot. So that's in a nutshell, that's the Excel version of it. And of course, there's lots of things to actually touch upon, but that's sort of the overview on the Excel bit. I'll just briefly touch on the web version of it, sort of have a clear idea of what you can get also from that side. So as I mentioned earlier, yes, this one actually pulls in data straight from SAP into my Excel workbook. But for those, for example, who are on the go, for example, you don't have access to your desktop, you can even, for example, so long as you have the web version of Sharperlight set up with the reports, you can easily sort of have all this reporting, and I can show you with the example of the same one we used. So rather than me creating the report again from scratch in the web browser for the web version, I can easily go back to my Excel version, which is this one. If I double click on this, and with one click, I can just click on my filters there, right click, and I can easily click on my publisher there. And what this does, it will actually copy this existing query into the publisher, which is actually the web, which is sort of what we use to design the web interface for Sharperlight. So in this particular case, I'll create a new one. And I can give it a name. So by default, it says sales AR. I can just say sales detailed line. I can just go with that. And of course, if I go to my edit query there, I can easily see the same query I actually used there, which is what I had there. But I'll just click on OK. I'll just click on apply. So I can just go straight to a quick link just to show you how it would appear anyway without any changes there. I'll go to my browser and I'll just paste that there. And what this does is, based on the actual report in my Excel workbook, without changing anything there, I can easily see all my reporting with all the filters there. As you can see, all my salesperson are there. And if I hit on submit, I can get the same data, but now in a web version format, as you can see there. Of course, we can do some housekeeping on that. So I can easily go back to my query builder there. I can edit my query and do some housekeeping. For example, let's say I want to hide certain things to make it look a bit neater. So I'll just hide this, hide that. Maybe you don't want them to filter based on that. Hide that. I don't want them to change the cancelled. I'll leave the salesperson because I don't want the user to basically select the salesperson and the date. So if I click on OK, I'm happy with that. And I'll apply. Immediately, I refresh this. As you can see, it's much neater now. If I hit on submit, I can easily see now my data there. So if I say it's top 20, but of course I can show almost all the records, and the same data which I had sort of in my Excel, I can actually have it on the web version. And what you do get in the web version, for all those who are asking, which most of our clients, let's say if I want to save this data in my local, yes, you do get the option just by right clicking straight on there. I can easily save it as a PDF, Excel, CSV. As you can see, there's a number of options there. I can even choose to print this if I wanted to sort of print it for my for my own hard copy, or I can even choose to do some further analysis on top of this. For example, I want to analyze further, so I can quickly go straight to the pivot there by clicking on that. What that does, it actually will bring for me all the measures as you can see there. So in a scenario where, yes, this was my main report where I had all my detail, but if I wanted to go based on a summary level based on the salesperson, I'll just drag my salesperson as the rows there. I can easily drag my line total, which is my sales, and I want to compare it with my gross profit there. And with a click of a button, I can easily see now a summary version based on my salesperson there. And of course, I can choose to chop and change however I want. If I wanted, for example, based on the customer name and salesperson, I can drag this as a column if need be. Hit on populate there. And that sorts of, as you can see there, I can see based on a sales, I want to see how a salesperson is behaving based on a customer or whatnot. You can easily do all this sort of analysis based on that. So in a scenario, basically we started with data, just basic data, but now what we are seeing from putting all this data, we actually have information which we can sort of make business decisions based on that, you know. So we can easily, as you can see, analyze based on a number of features. I can even, for example, start with a summary version. For example, easily go straight from there. Have my web version there. Can paste that there. This is a summary version based on that, which I created quite earlier there. So I can have a summary version based on that. If I wanted to view it, for example, visually, I can easily do with a quick click. I can just easily go to my charts. For example, I want to view it in a column based, just click on chart and column. Or I can even set it as predefined. As you can see there, I can easily see if I'm more interested in visuals, you can see there. Of course, I can choose to analyze based on a number of things. So if I have, for example, in my case, I have a drill down, for example, inbuilt there. So for example, if I go to my customer Sehem Inc. there, if I right click on that, I can easily see my view details, which is the drill down actually built in on top of that. So if I click on that, I can easily see what's actually now, what makes up that value. So in my case, I can see the individual sort of breakdown based on that. And in my case, I'll just quickly go on my query. Just a small setting I need to make. Okay. So as I was saying, I'll easily refresh this, submit that. And of course, and this will actually apply to each and every customer. For example, if I go to my web customer, if I right click on that, view details, I can easily see now, just for my web customer, what actually makes up that value 175. And the same applies to any particular customer. If I come, for example, to my MaxiTech, view details, and the same details will actually apply, and it will only show me MaxiTech sales. So I can sort of have all these versions actually inbuilt on top of my either within the Excel or within the web. And I can even take it a step further. For example, if I have, I have a published report in the web, I can even choose to sort of automate it, and that's what I'll quickly jump on that. So with regards to the web version, you can sort of create visual elements on top of that, and there's quite a few. For example, this is one of our Sharperlight's demo server to sort of show you what visualization you can get within Sharperlight. As you can see there, for example, if I go to my purchases, just to show you, I can inbuilt my filters there. For example, what's my current year, what's my month, and whatnot. And as I'm actually, for example, I can analyze based on a number of things. For example, based on a particular stock line, if I go to my printers, hit on submit, my data will actually refresh just based on the printers. And of course, I can play with my filters if I want to look at my 2019, for example, March. So you can build all this visualization, and the web version comes as a part of the Excel. It's basically a part of it, so it comes with your license. So from Excel, you can take your normal sort of data, static tables, and you can bring it into the web and make it more visual. And you can see there's a number of visualizations you can actually create within the Sharperlight. And of course, it ranges within a number of things there. And just the last bit, just to sort of touch upon, because I believe we are conscious of time. So if I go back to my application, the last bit is that, yes, we can create all these reports, all these sort of visualizations within Sharperlight, but what we can also do is we can actually automate them rather than, you know, extracting the data and emailing them basically to different users. If you have a sort of a long distribution list, you can actually automate, especially in sending of the emails, and that's what the schedule actually plays a good part in that. So if I click on that, and what we can actually do is, if I actually go back to my, just to show you there, I'll just go to my schedule charts, and what I can do, I can actually set up triggers within sort of, I can tell the Sharperlight whether I want to do it on a daily basis, and of course what time, if I wanted basically to do it in every day, in monthly, as you can see there. So if I click on monthly, it basically asks me, okay, which months would I basically want? Is it on the last day of the month or on the first Sunday of the month? So I can sort of do all these combinations there. But the main thing is that we have a number of options where I can sort of create a number of reportings and sort of store them in a certain folder, and sort of within a batch I can email them straight to two different users and whatnot. So it sort of automates the sending of the email. So in my case, I have a task there based on my published query there. So if I click on that, so I've linked my published query there. And what I'll do is I'll just quickly show you anyway. If I'll just manually trigger this, but what you can do is based on, of course, your SMTP settings and whatnot. If I execute that, we can actually set it to auto send if it's out of hours or based on a trigger, whatever you want. But what this will basically do is Sharperlight, based on the reporting you have, it can be an Excel-based reporting. What Sharperlight will do, it will just refresh the current live data and send you the actual live data straight from SAP. And what that does, and it should get an email. And in my case, I just got an email straight from there. In my case, I choose a PDF as an option, but of course I can choose Excel or whatnot. So you can see I have my daily sales report for today's date, and of course I can easily view it there. And that's actually the summary report which we just viewed on the web browser. So I can sort of tend to automate this reporting, and we can make it so it's sort of you can reduce certain tasks. So Sharperlight plays a good role in sort of in doing that. And of course, there's quite a number of options also which we've not touched upon. For example, we have a support for write back functionality within there. So for example, I can write back into budgets straight into SAP. So not only extracting the data from SAP, if within my Excel file, I can sort of send budgets from my Excel into SAP. I can even, for example, write like my journal entries from SAP, from Excel into SAP. So you get that bi-directional functionality also within Sharperlight. I don't know if you have any particular questions there, and I don't know if Dan is with us so that you can proceed with that. But I think that's all on my end. So I look forward to hearing questions on your end.
Thanks, Sehem, for all your information today. Anyone interested in finding out more about Sharperlight, you can get in touch with your account manager or email us at support@milnerbrowne.com. I also mentioned that we're recording this webinar, so we'll be making sure to send it out to everyone. And if you want to see more webinars, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, enable notifications so that you're first to know about new videos as well. So I think that wraps it up for us. Thanks again, Sehem, for your presentation,
My
and
pleasure.
thanks to everyone who attended. Yeah, thanks again, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Bye for now.